Hey, you've tuned into Math with Mr. C. This time we're on 10.3, Rational Numbers on a Number Line. Once you have your name and the date and the title written, we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. You had 2 specific homework sheets yesterday because 2 lessons were put into one. Please check 10.1, and I'm showing you 10.2 in 3, 2, 1. Here's 10.2. Thank you for checking your homework, and 3, 2, 1. Here's our example for rational numbers on a number line. How can you compare rational numbers on a number line? And before I go and read this, I want to show you specifically a difference between an integer and a rational number. Let's see. Integer. -1. Is that an integer? Yes, it is. And it is also a rational number. You're going to begin to see the difference here. -1 and 2/10, -1.2. Is that an integer? It's not a counting number, so no, but it is a rational number. 7/8. Do I count that? I go 1, 2, all right, I don't stop at 7/8, so that's a no, but 7/8 is a rational number. And 18, that's a counting number, so that's yes, and that's also a rational number. I see the difference I'm seeing here is decimals are not integers and fractions are not integers, but they are rational numbers. So any number that can be shown as the quotient of 2 integers is called a rational number. For any integers a and b, where b does not equal 0, a divided by b, or a divided by b. Just because what I said might have been confusing, I wrote right up here at the top, if there's a 0 on the top or the bottom of a fraction that is not a rational number. That's all that sentence said. Rational numbers can be written in different ways. So they can be written as a fraction, improper fraction like this, or as a decimal. Now we're going to answer the question, how do we put them on a number line? And by them, I mean rational numbers, with a clue word of pink flowers. Think of -4/3 as a decimal. So every single time that I want you to put a rational number, even if they give it to you as a fraction, on a number line, we're going to make it into a decimal. Just every time. That's the easiest way that I've found to make sense. And so here we see that we have 3 divided by 4, just as 3 divided by 4. And we get 1.33, and repeating 3, and we're going to bring our negative sign down. So we have -1 and 3/10 repeating. I see on the number line here, if we don't know exactly where the number goes, first we're going to need to count tick marks. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4 is to -1. So what is 1 split into 4 tick marks? We split it into 4 sections. What's $1 split into 4? How many cents would I have? So I see here by counting the tick marks that this is 25 cents, 50, 75, $1, and then this would be 125. These are all negative, of course. And so we're thinking, where does -1.3 go? Well, it goes between -1.25 and -1.5, and so we put it right there in the middle. There are no vocab notes for today. And moving on to example 1. For example 1, I see that we have 4, and first thing you're going to need to do is to copy this number line in your notes. I notice there's a 0, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 ticks to equal each whole number. Take careful note in order to make it exactly that way. And explaining it in 3, 2, 1. Because each whole number is split into 4 parts, 1, 2, 3, 4, I now know that this tick mark will be 1/4 of the way to 1, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. Except I said that I specifically wanted decimals, so instead of fractions here, I'm going to make them into decimals, and I'm going to label each one of my tick marks. And now I've labeled my number line, each tick mark going up or down 25 cents. I would like you to label yours just like this now. It might take a minute. That's okay. Unpause the video when you're ready. All right. So now we're going to talk about number 1. I see that number 1 is -1/4. I know that I need to make that into a decimal, and the way that I do that is dividing like this. I see I can't divide that. I'm going to add a decimal and 2 zeros. and I get an answer of 25 cents. And that is my most beautiful 5 I've ever made. So where does negative 1/4 go? I'm going to write this. I see negative 25's here, so I'm going to say negative 1/4 goes there. And 2, negative 4/10. Notice how I already have these labeled as decimals. And so when there is a decimal, it will be easier to put them in order. Negative 25 cents. And I see that 4 goes between this 2 and this 5 in the 10th spot. So right in between here is going to go negative 4/10. And try to be as neat as you can in your notes. I understand that it might be difficult. Now we have 1.3. In between, I see this is a 3 for the 10th spot. Here's a 2 in the 10th spot, 1 and 2 in the 10th spot. Here's a 5 in the 10th spot. 3 is between this 2 and the 5. Therefore, I'm going to put 1.3 in between those. 1 and 1/5. I'm going to need to make that into a decimal first. So here we divided 1 divided by 5, and I got 2/10. I need to add that to the whole number that I had. I have 1 and 2/10. The whole number is right there. So now I'm looking at my number line, and I see that 2/10 is less than 25 hundredths. It's the same as 20 cents. $1.20 is less than $1.25. So it's going to go right before that tick mark there. 1.2. And that's example 1. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. For these numbers, I want you to write the example problems, make both of them into decimals, and then compare which one is bigger or smaller. Remember, previous lessons we talked about warmer or colder. Showing number 5 in 3, 2, 1. So now I have negative 1 and 25 degrees and negative 4/10 degrees. Thinking, which one's warmer, 4/10 degrees or negative 1 and 25 degrees? 4/10 degrees is warmer. It's higher on the number line, closer to the positive, therefore it's greater. Number 6, showing you the answer in 3, 2, 1. For number 6, I'm looking at the 10th spot after I've made this into a decimal, and I see that 3 is bigger, therefore 1 and 3/10 is bigger than 1 and 2/10. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. Here's independent or partners practice. You may notice there are 5 problems. You do not need to write this number line. It's just here to help you after you find your decimal answer to show you them in order, when of course the ones closer to the right side are bigger or greater, and the ones closer to the negative side are smaller. Please make each of these into decimals when you answer them. Showing you 10, 11, and 12 in 3, 2, 1. For number 10, I was going to make it into a decimal, and then I saw that there wasn't even a whole number here before 11/12. I know that negative 1 and 5/10 is further left on the negative line, meaning that it's less. So I know right away that's smaller. Here I see that we're working with positive numbers. I'm looking at the 10th spot. I see that 2 is smaller than 6, therefore it goes that way. Luckily, in this previous problem, we had 5/4, and I already know that it's 1 and 25 hundredths for number 12. And I know that 1 and 25 hundredths is greater than 1. When comparing these next two, I want to show you a trick where you don't actually need to find the full answer as a decimal for these. You only need to find, oftentimes, the 10th of the decimal answer. And let me show you what I mean by that. When dividing 11 by 12, I knew that 12 goes into 110 9 times. I get 108 and I have a remainder of 2. And I know that I'm kind of in for a long division problem that not really sure if I want to do if I don't have to. And so I'm going to stop with negative 9/10. I know that's not the whole answer, but I will be able to compare the tenths when I divide negative 3/8. And so now dividing negative 3/8, I see that 8 goes into 30, 3 times with 24 and 6 left over. So that's going to have a 3 in the 10th spot, knowing that both of these are negative. So which one would be colder, negative 9/10 degrees or negative 3/10 degrees? It would be colder with negative 9/10. Therefore, that is less than, it is more negative than negative 3/8 degrees. For this one right here, I know that 0, if there's a positive number over here, it's going to be bigger than 0, and that's greater. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. Thanks for watching this video. Please click the link below for Khan Academy video and practice, and then choose one of these 2 options. Thanks for watching, and you're awesome.